Hello, everybody. My name is Natalie Bruner. All right, so the pandemic was hard. I was working as a nonprofit director and a single mom of a 3-year-old who wasn't in daycare and an 11-year-old special needs child who wasn't in school. To say it was hard is an understatement. I remember waking up to a barrage of emails and then throughout the day having to do my normal work responsibilities. So we're talking about writing grants, filling out reports, maintaining partnerships. I also had to lead a team through multiple crises, we were in COVID, as well as cook more, clean more. I had to redirect a preteen to focus in class and play with a preschooler who just wanted to sit on mommy's lap all day. Then, once they went to sleep, that's when the real work began. That's when I sat up at my computer all night until I fell asleep at my laptop, only to wake up at about 3 a.m. with a slight pain in my neck. I would drag myself to bed, all to start over again the next day. It was a year and a half of literally no break. But I realized that I gave everything I could and still didn't give everything I had. It wasn't the only work-related story of the pandemic. There were individuals who had to work in person and had no childcare. There were individuals who couldn't transition to working from home because they had no connectivity or computer. And then there were those individuals whose organizations couldn't understand how they fit, and so they were simply let go. I began to realize that work is so confined, even though now we live in an age where there is worldwide connectivity and flexibility thanks to our expanding technology. I began to wonder there has to be a better way to do work. Organizations need to redefine and rethink what work is and how it gets accomplished. We have to do this in conjunction with employees to ensure everyone is included and no one's left behind. We have to think about how to accomplish this by restructuring jobs in a way that allows people's whole selves to really show up. So I want to take a brief look at history. Before and during the industrial age, there was a running theme of doing more, making more with less time, energy, effort, and people. During that time period, we saw a lot of revolutionary concepts like division of labor, the specialization of trades, and the assembly line, all aimed at getting the most out of employees. The job structure fit the need of the time, sometimes at the expense of employees. And in some extreme cases, think Oliver Twist. Please, sir, I want some more. But thanks to that, we saw the rise of, labor unions, who were able to be the voice of individuals and for their protection. During that time period, we now see sort of the expansion of labor markets, globalization. We now see increased competition, moving from a manufacturing to a service-based economy, as well as more technological advances. And so, because of that, we find ourselves in the midst of the information age. We see sort of new developing technologies on what feels like a daily basis. Regularly, we're seeing new computer programs, new apps, new software, new automation, AI, smart things, all shifting the way that we do work on really what feels like a very daily basis. And when we see this shift, I think we need to handle this with something called a transfer of responsibilities. So this is a decentralization of job responsibilities that allow for the seamless transfer of duties and tasks from one employee to another to allow for the goals of individuals to be accomplished, as well as managing the different areas of their lives. So just like the industrial age brought about revolutionary concepts that allowed organizations to thrive, and unions allowed for the voice of people to be heard, we find ourselves in a similar moment. We find ourselves in a moment where we have to not only understand the shifts that are happening, but also to ensure that the voice of people are heard. So during the pandemic, there was a freeze. So there was a wrench thrown into our work machine that caused it to grind to a screeching halt. During that time, we had the opportunity to think about how we structure our organizations. It really highlighted the need for individuals and organizations to care about the work-life balance, because it was no longer the sole responsibility of employees. We had to care about who had kids at home. I mean, especially during Zoom calls. We had to care about who had aging parents, who had sick family members, and who was home all alone. We had to care about who actually had computers in order for them to be able to connect with the abilities to be able to do this. And so with this, I'm thinking about building work structures in a way that you can sort of build your own organization. So just like Lego blocks, where you build a structure with your job, you can sort of add and remove job responsibilities to build a new role in your organization. I mean, instead of being lost to the she session, which is a term to emphasize the larger employment loss for women in the workforce, I could have switched to one aspect of my role, like grant writing. That would have afforded me the opportunity to give some pieces back to the organization and also focus on my work responsibilities at home. I could have taken that time to write grants, bring in some more money for the organization during a fiscally strenuous time, as well as figuring out how it gets done. And then, once school came back, if I wanted to, and if the opportunity still presented itself, I could have gone back to my previous role and picked up those pieces. Or for the individuals that don't have internet, they could have worked on some backlog paperwork until they got the equipment that they needed in order to be able to interact at a work-from-home environment. And then those individuals who were just let go, they could have been cross-trained in order to fit a new role within their organization instead of not being a part of it. I mean, this is not going to be easy, and it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to require cross-training individuals to fit within their organization, not just in their role, but helping to learn how to work multiple areas of the organization. It's going to require you to quantify the cost of individual tasks, as well as having a deeper level of people management. And then once you let those pieces go to better manage your life, what happens? This is where employee development can truly shine. This is where individuals who really want to grow as professionals and be better have the opportunity to pick up some pieces. I mean, we have to think about the growing professionals that sort of are looking for new things, leaving organizations because they're not getting what they need. Here's the opportunity for them to pick up some responsibilities, learn new skills, and be able to stay in the organization instead of leaving, taking their talent and organizational knowledge with them. I mean, we have to do something. The mass exodus of the Great Resignation is a grassroots movement. It's a low-cry protest that work conditions need to change. I mean, 47.8 million people voluntarily left their jobs in 2021. That is the largest number ever recorded by the US Labor Department. During that time, it allowed us to sit and think about how do we want our personal world, our professions, and our communities to be structured. And during that time period, we as a society came to some realizations. One, we realized that social justice matters, the government needs to do more, our mental health is critically important, and of course, work needs to be more than it currently is. So what's next? What's next are the organizations that truly learn how to step up and do more and be more than they've ever been. What's next are those organizations that understand that work needs to bring more to the table than it actually does. What's next are the organizations that understand that work is more than a transactional relationship of a paycheck for time and skill. It has to fit within people's lives. What's next are the organizations who pivot and become what people need. Those are the organizations that are going to be able to grow, attract new talent, and thrive. And those who don't are going to be the ones that continue to experience the Great Resignation. They're going to be the ones that lose talent, that leave untapped genius off the table from those who stay, stagnate, and eventually fade away. What we need to realize is that the people have power, and they realize it. And it's time for organizations to respect that power and co-create jobs with individuals that fit within their lives, tap into their passions, and serve them. It's time organizations realize that people choose where they want to work. It's time organizations realize that people show up to work with their full selves, with their identities, families, and circumstances they should not have to turn off. I mean, we have to do something, because if we don't, we're going to realize that we're leaving a lot of talent on the table. Organizations can no longer rely on the old school, 9 to 5, in the office, old way of doing things, because we're leaving behind a lot of talent on the table. We're leaving behind women who are impacted by the unforgiving schedules of the she session. We're leaving behind a diverse group of individuals who would rather sit at home alone with a computer than to be in an environment where they don't feel included. And we're leaving behind an up-and-coming generation who is writing a new set of rules. It's time that work transforms into a new era that actually includes everybody. So, how do we do this? We need to think about where we are. There is the gig economy, the she session, as well as the Great Resignation. These are all signs that things need to change. How many more signs do we need before we listen as leaders and are heard as employees? Organizations have a growing responsibility to be more involved than they've been in the past. I mean, hey, we are all in this together. We have to serve employees as much as employees serve us. So, let's listen, decentralize job descriptions so that everyone gets what they need, co-create the environment and culture so that all of our needs can be served. Thank you.